down here at Westbrook Mere. Got my flicked the first rod out, but I think I might flick it again. Had a quick walk round and saw as I was walking around, a couple of fish roll sort of mid-water, sort of up halfway up the lake. So had a very quick couple of chucks with the lead and found a slightly firmer area. It's quite a silty mere, so very quickly found a slightly firmer area, and I'm just going to drop a couple of rigs on it tonight. I only seen those couple of fish roll in that area. I think I'm going to fish quite close together. Two slightly different presentations. I'm going to fish one on a hinge rig, and what I'm just sharpening here is a D rig from the winter box of ClubCarp. Just going to fish it out on that slightly firmer plateau with a wafter over the top, and see if we can get one of these elusive carp out of the lake. So I'm just going to sharpen this hook up a little bit, just a little bit blunt, get the rig tied up with the wafter or maybe a snowman, just flick that out into that slightly firmer area, and between the two different presentations, having a wafter and then one slightly silty area on a hinge rig, I think that will cover my bases, certainly first to the first night. And if we see any fish this evening, we're in quite a central body of the water here. If we hear any boshing out or we see any shows just out now into the sort of late evening, we can quite easily move a single onto that area and see if we can pick up one of those carp. So just going to get this rig tied up, wrapped out to the area that I found earlier, and see if we can pick up one of these carp. So I clocked on a few years ago that I fished this quite hard a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden started catching on white milky toffees. Now the big fish in here, I might put a yellow one later. The big common I haven't had out of here called Rudder loves a yellow, and I lost it last March, just down in that margin. But I've started fishing milky toffees when I was here before, mainline milky toffees, and started getting catches and catches. When Rob came down, he had them on white, because Jack had told him to fish on white. It seems to be, even now, a couple of years, we haven't fished as hard, white still seems to be the bait.
That's the winner.
That and a pink Northern Special blank saver. We used to call them blank savers, and that's how I started fishing with more Northern Special, was because I'd throw them out with a couple of hours to go, and you'd find that you'd just pick one out on a single, and so I started fishing more and more Northern Specials, and then more and more bait from CC Moore. What am I looking for? Done the business. So I've just got this one tied up here on the D rig from the winter box, just with a little sew man. So I found that slightly firmer patch that I mentioned earlier. I just think that fishing it on a helicopter rig, it's slightly firm, but if I just come slightly off into that slightly bit of softer silt, just in case, I've got enough room for that lead to plug and that to drop on top. I think the snowman offers me a nice presentation on that firmer area, and I see that D rig does the business. So we'll just put a little bit of foam on there and get this one flung out, roll on the carp. Love the taste of a Northern Special. Yourself a little bit more room to play with. That dropped down, a nice bit of firm spot. That's what I was looking for. With the conditions being quite up and down over the last few days and continuing to be so, I think this morning we had snow in some parts of the country. These slightly wintry conditions that we're facing at the moment, I don't want to put an awful lot of bait out, so probably going to put about, over the rods fish relatively tight together, probably going to put about 30 baits and a slight spread across that area, and just hope that we can pick up a carp on the on one of those spots and see what we can do. But not going to put an awful lot of bait out. I think with the conditions at the moment, let's look for a bite and see what happens before we start introducing much bait. That's weird that I pulled up like that. Give them 5 minutes to settle, I think. So just got a handful of baits out now over that spot. Just let the line settle as I've got those boilies over. So the rods are out for tonight. Just going to get the bobbins clipped up on the lines, get the rest of base camp set up, get a bit of food going and just chill out for the evening. We've got a couple of early liners and let's hope we can try and get a carp. It's just as the sun's going down now, see if we can nick a carp and get this session off to a bit of a roll. Good morning. You join us on the first morning. Sun's not long made its appearance and I've just put the kettle on and made a brew. Last night is what I'd class as an uneventful, eventful night. Loads of liners on my left-hand rods, which is the rig that we put out, the D rig with the snowman set up. Plenty of liners on that throughout the night and quite convinced I had a pickup, but unable to convert that to a fish. The right hand rod though did have a bit of a slab of a bream about 2:30 this morning. That was the hinge rig cast just off that slightly firmer area I mentioned yesterday. Sort of very quickly got that in and got the rod back out. I feel fortunate we didn't have anything last night, but definitely we're in the right area judging by the liners. I think I'll have a bit of an assess now the sun's coming up, so I'll keep my eyes on the lake and see if we see any shows or have a look back at those rigs later and make any changes if required. But we'll see how we get on. Last night I feel like I was done on my snowman presentation on a D-rig last night, and quite a few liners which just didn't convert into a bite, so spent most of the evening in and out of sleep just thinking about how I can adjust a presentation which may give me a little bit more chance of converting a fish. So just tying up a loops and boom style rig. I'm fishing on a helicopter just because of some of the fine silt out there, so I've got the rigidity of a sort of a boom section here, and just going to attach that via sort of a loop boom to the hook section using the Nash skin link braid. That will then fish with a wafter or snowman presentation over the top and give me a little bit of flexibility at the rig end, but also offer me the sort of rigidity when fishing on a snowman setup. So I'm just going to put that together now and assess over the next hour or so if it's worth putting it out straight away. I'll just see how the morning progresses with the rigs out there at the moment. So following on from my update earlier, I've reeled that rod in, which had quite a lot of liners on last night. I felt something wasn't quite right, so I've just changed the rig presentation over to a loops and boom style rig. Still going to snowman effect, and I'm going to flick that rod out now, and hopefully we can slightly different rig presentation will trip up these wiley fish. There we go. Wallop. That wobbler. That was there. So just as I casted out my left-hand rod back onto the spot earlier, which I was fishing over, as I just put the rod out, I saw a fish turn, single turn fish sort of much further down the lake. So quickly whipped the right-hand rod in, just changed the bait over and put a slightly heavier lead on. I'm just going to send one down. There's no one else fishing down the other end of the lake at the moment, so I'm quite safe to do so. And just going to cast that down, sort of down towards the bridge, and let's see if we can pick up that fish that rolled earlier. Let's get it out there. That was nigh on, bang on where that fish rolled. Lateral pla indeed. Get up there, my boy. Common's down there. Loves a yellow. Big fish angling. Just put that right hand rod back out on that single spot down there. Bit of a yellow bait. There's a big common in here, which is known to like a little bit of yellow. So we flicked that single out there, and let's see if we can pick up that big carp. So when you saw me earlier, I'd reeled in, decided to come for a bit of walk. The sun's come up in this area, and I've moved into an area called Snook's Bay, Snook's Pool. And just as I walked down, I saw a few fish on the top here, and fired a couple of mixers out. Couldn't see anything. They didn't start taking them, but the wind is just blowing into this margin down here. But as I was standing there, I saw 2 fish roll in this little area here. And there's actually 1, 2, maybe 3. I can definitely see 2. I think I saw a third just out here. So just putting a little bit of pellet in now. I'm going to flick 2 rods from the opposite margin over here, and just see if we can pick one of these up. I'm hoping just put enough pellet on that the fish moves, and get a rod out. George just kindly let me know there's another fish just here. Just sitting in this margin here. You can definitely get a rod to it from the other side. Just short. They're definitely turned up on this sunny side of the lake. Small fish, just basking in the snags. Just get a little bit of pellet out for a bit of attraction. Put bait on either spot. Okay, we've moved round, from where we was fishing overnight. Unfortunately, there was not any joy. Excuse the train coming past. I reeled in, come for a bit of a walk, come into this area of the lake called Snook's Pool. The sun gets up on it early morning, and as I walked round, saw a spread of fish up on the surface here. Fired some mixers out at them. Fortunately, it didn't look like they were taking it. As I came round, I saw fish roll 3 times from the other side of the snag here, and one resting in this little area here. So quickly put a little bit of pellet out and a couple of boilies just now. I'm going to walk round. I'm going to get a couple of rods, flick out a couple of rigs on the area. I've got no idea what the substrate of the lake is underneath. I'm going to put a couple of rigs on there on this snaggy margin where the sun is. Hopefully pick up one of these carp that seem to be basking in this sort of late morning sunshine. Let's see how we get on. Come on, the big carp. So I'm not taking any opportunities here in regards to the substrate of the lake. I'm going to flick 2 pop-ups out on helicopter rigs. One with a hinge with a white northern special, as we've got set up here, and the other one probably on a Ronnie rig or a slight pop-up rig where I can just present another rod, slightly different colour bait and presentation, a little bit closer to the deck. And we'll see if we can pick up one of these carp. But I think it's a couple of pop-ups. I don't want to make too many casts at all. The pressure's going to be on to nail one of these fish without minimal disruption. So change the lighter lead, a couple of pop-ups on, and let's just see if we can snare out one of these fish. Okay, so we've managed to get one of the rods on that margin where I saw a couple of carp earlier. Got the first one out just on the left-hand side of the snag where I saw a fish roll 3 times. And then as I was walking back in another snag, we saw a fish just basking in the sun and a much bigger common come through and dip down on a little bit of pellet that I'd put out. So I haven't got many chances about getting these casts correct. So managed to get the first one out, 1 test cast clipped up, and then got the rig straight out. And let's hope we can repeat the same with this rod. Quite a snaggy area, and I really don't want to be thrashing this around, so a hinge rig is going out, a little pink bait on this one, white one on the other. Let's just see if we can get this bang on. Hope for the best. See what we can do. The train going by, perfect chance to get a rod out. One of the benefits of the trains are if you've managed to flick your rods out, you can quite often get the lead out at the same time as the train going past to reduce the amount of disruption.
Start it up.
So we spent the afternoon down in this Snook's Pool, part of the mere here. We've tried an awful lot, getting them on the top, trying to fish them in the margin where they've been resting out. Just put a little bit of bait in. I think it's looking really likely that we're going to spend the evening down here with the fish milling around. I've just put a spread of boilies along this marginal shelf. We're planning on trying to pick them up as they move through this margin later this evening. I think we're going to put the rods in, have a quick look at the main body of the water, and I think it's looking very likely we'll end up here for tonight. So it's been quite an interesting afternoon. Well, all day really. We've spent down in Snook's pool behind us here. It's a small pool off the main channel, the main body of the water. Walking down early this morning, we saw a good head of carp, maybe about 20 carp milling around in the side margin. Cast a couple of rigs over there to no avail, and probably spent the last 3 or 4 hours working mixers across that body of water, just trying to pull the carp in, but didn't quite seem to be up for a floater, and nothing on the top. Over the last hour and a half or so, the winds just seem to have changed and started blowing in a cold wind into this Snook's pool. So we've skipped the rods in, put a little bit of bait down on that margin, and just now going to have a bit of a walk round this main body of water. I've just come to this first swim, which looks, the bridge behind me is sort of a main channel and access point for the fish into Snook's pool. And as I've walked around here with the sun that was previously on us, you can see a couple of the fish moving out, which is straight away indicating to me that maybe it's worth having a look round this main body of water before we settle for the night. So we're just going to have a good look round the main body of Westbrook Mere now, have a look at some of these side margins just as the evening's starting to draw in. Assess a couple of spots, see if we can see any carp in this main body of water. I'll work out a bit of a plan for tonight. We were pegged up in middle of the body last night, and we had a bit of action. And we've just seen a few carp moving out of this Nooks area now. So I think next hour or so we'll try and make a decision on where we're going to be for the night. Get a couple of rods out, a bit of bait in an area, and see if we can pick up a fish. I feel like I'm making a serious life decision right now. We spent the night in the middle of the body of the water, had several liners and I think an aborted take last night, and a slab of a bream at the same time. We spent the day down in Snook's pool, plenty of fish down there, at least 30 carp, but throughout the day in the sunshine weren't interested in feeding. As we've walked out the lake, out Snook's pool, I've had a look on the bridge into the main body of water down this bottom end and seen a few fish moving out of Snook's pool. So I'm torn really at the moment between fishing Asbo's, which is the peg and the end by the bridge, or in Snook's pool for the night. I have a feeling those fish may move out. We've had a new wind come in, pushing down this body of the lake. It is a cold wind. It's going to be a very clear night. Part of me is telling me they may move out of Snook's pool. The decisions need to be made. It's getting now late into 5:30. We're going to move. We need to make a decision quite soon on where we're going to go for the night. I've put some bait in a couple of spots in Asbo's at the bottom of the main body of water, or we move in the other end. Right, decision's made. We're moving. We're going to move into 10 at the bottom end of this lake. I think I've found there's a firm gravel spot behind me over there. I think we've seen a few fish push out this channel. So we're going to grab the rods, get the rods out straight away in this sort of late evening sunshine. And I think we can try and bag a carp tonight. But the move is on. Let's jump in 10 and let's see what we can make happen. Oh, she come off. Oh no. It was finicky. They snapped me off. Cracked me off. What the fuck? That's angling. So we're into our second evening. Fortunately, it's been a busy day, trials and tribulations, working from a few different swims. We're now into our third swim of the trip. Just put the rods out. I'm just prepping one out now because I'd like to change the presentation over. Lost one earlier, fishing on a hard spot. Had a take as I pulled into it. For some reason, the line snapped. I wonder if there's a couple of mussels out there potentially, which just as the line went over it, it cracked. But I'm getting the rods out now for the evening. Just ordered a little bit of food and feeling very confident. We've seen a lot of fish boshing out over in the distance. Just getting a heli rig set up, so with a hinge rig, quite a Silty Mere, and I've seen quite a few fish over a Silty area. So I think the presentation with a hinge rig on quite a long bead with a light lead, I can get the rod out in a similar area, and I think I can pick up a carp or two in that area. Morning. So you join us in another swim this morning. Got up, had quite a quiet night last night, had a cup of tea and watched the sun come up. Didn't see anything, so went on a little bit of a move this morning. I've just moved into another swim now where we saw a couple of fish in a snaggy margin. So we just put a couple of rods over there for this morning, just to see what happens. We're on fish again and hoping that we can nick one this morning. So this afternoon I found a few fish feeding in a silty area of this back channel behind me here. I managed to successfully bait spoon a rig into place just on top of a few fish that were feeding in the area, and I thought I'd take 5 minutes to talk you through the rig I've been using to combat this silty substrate on this lake. I'm using the Alan Blair Slip D rig from the summer box, and I thought I'd very quickly take you through how to tie this rig. So initially I took 12 inches off the skin link and stripped off about 4 inches of the braid, or the coating of the braid. I then formed a loop and passed this through the Nash size 4 twister hook, attached a bait screw, took the loop through the bait screw and then looped the braid onto the hook. And then using a knotless knot tied on the hook, attached a tungsten hook kicker, a tungsten sinker, and then a tungsten anti-tangle sleeve before using a figure of 8 loop to tie a loop into the end of the rig to construct this total of about 8 inches long. I'm using a CC Moore Northern Special wafter over the top because I think that will very gently flutter down over that silt, and if the lead does plug in, it offers me enough length to ensure that the rig doesn't stick into the stilt as well. We'll keep you posted, but hopefully we'll find that this does the trick and trips up one of these wily carp. So as you've probably gathered by now, I'm trying to get my steps in each day. So we're now moved on to another swim. We've seen quite a lot of fish up on this wind. As you can see, the wind's been blowing in here for the last couple of days. I've got a small pad section right out in front of me. So I've just lowered one of my rigs just over the other back of the pads and onto a slightly siltier area with a balanced bait on. Just got that rod set up. Now I'm going to get the second rod out, probably just only a couple of rod lengths out, and get set up for the night. There's definitely fish down here. They're definitely on this wind. There's been a couple out just a little bit further up from us last night. Feeling very confident in here this evening. We're going to get the rod set up, get our house set for the night, and let's see if we can finally get one of these carp. So I'm just about to get my second rod out. As per the message earlier, just using the slip D rig from the summer box, just casting out about 2 rod lengths out into a slightly silty area. As you can see, I'm fishing on a helicopter setup. I've just lifted that bead up a little bit just to accommodate if the lead does plug into the silt a little bit. This will fall down quite nicely. It's critically balanced and just rest on top of any silt. But it looks quite good in the area, so we're going to flick the rod out now. Let's see if we can get one. So I'm just testing the balance of the rig in the margin here, just to make sure it's presenting just fine. So we're just going to flick this one out now. A couple of rod lengths out, a little bit of foam, just to aid with the rig not sticking into the silt. Once that foam dissolves, it will just nestle down on top of any debris out there and be presentable for any incoming carp. Get up there. Wallop. That will play. So we just get that line, let that line settle for a couple of minutes. Fishing very slack lines, fishing close in the margin. We'll be fishing very slack to not disrupt any fish that come in through, tighten the margin and improve our chances of catching the fish. Just let that settle for a couple of minutes before putting the bobbin on, and we're fishing. Good evening. So we're into one of our last evenings. It's been quite the session, to say the least, and I think you'll see that from the footage that we've collected so far. We've been in several swims chasing the fish, quite regularly finding them across the pond, but today, with the wind blowing in up this top end, we've located a few fish right up the top and managed to jump in a couple of swims here. A few fish were caught last night by one of the other anglers, and it's looking quite good up here with the wind blowing in. We're now into our last night. Things are looking good. Safe to say we've got our steps in nonetheless, but the rods went out quite well, just fishing in the margin in front of us. The sun's now going down behind the trees. Going to put a little bit of food on shortly, but it's looking good tonight. Still feeling very optimistic for a good bite, and let's see if we can get ourselves a carp out. tech. Unfortunately, he's managed to do me in the pads. The rod's gone. From the scale. But we'll get that rod straight back out. Still sticking sharp. Let's see if we can get that fish back in pronto. We've got the other line on him. That's it. He's right now. Fucking get it. Oh, Jesus, wrecked, man. I've never worked so hard in my life. So for many, fishing's all about the journey, and it's safe to say this trip has been a journey, to say the least. Going into last night, everything was looking good with the wind blowing in, and in the early hours, my rod fished to the pads in my margin, pulled up, and I was playing a fish. Unfortunately, it done me in the pads, which was a real shame, but managed to get the rod out quite quickly after that and settle back in. And about 5 o'clock this morning, the same rod went off again. I managed to bend into a decent sized fish. After a bit of a battle, managed to get the rod in and net the fish. And up on the scales, it's just come in at just over 30 pounds. So I'm absolutely delighted with this morning. It's all paid off in the end. Just gonna have a quick brew, let the rest of the sun come up this morning. Who knows, the rods are back out on the margin, might be able to nick another one, but we'll get the fish out shortly and put it up for the pictures and the cameras. But I'm elated, to say the least, and we'll see you shortly. So here we are, 30 pounds and a couple of ounces, caught just before first light this morning from the left-hand margin. Fished with the Alan Blair Slip D rig from the summer box, with a white trim down pop-up, just critically balanced, fishing into the silt. Gave up a good scrap this one, and wasn't long before he was in the net. Spoken to a couple of the anglers here, might be a new 30 for the lake. And safe to say, after the moves, we finally got on some fish, which were up for a feed. And after losing one in the early hours this morning, I'm absolutely delighted to have caught this fish. What a buzz, eh? Gonna get this one back now. If this fish doesn't have a name, you'd definitely call it hard work after this session. Absolutely delighted. Let's get him back. So we're just going to slip this one back now. Got the rods back out on the spot from earlier. Got a few hours left before we need to whip the rods in, and it's with the wind pushing down, seeing a few fish, it's still looking good for another bite. And what a treat it would be to get one more. But let's get Westbrook Mere's next top model back out, back to his watery home. Just got him back, mega work. Let's get another one. So just a bit of an update since we last spoke to the camera of that lovely 30-pound common earlier. We've set out most of the morning now in this swim, packed up and just hanging on for the last sort of half an hour just to see if we can pick one up before leaving. But it's been a great session so far. The Fitbit tells me I've done well, and I think that big 30 says I have as well. So I'll hang out now, couple more minutes, half hour or so, and then whip these rods in and head on home. So that brings us to the end of the session. I think it proves in the pudding that if you keep moving and stay on fish, eventually you'll be rewarded with something special. It's been a great couple of days here at Westbrook Mere. I must say thank you to Alan and Dan and Mark for allowing us to fish here, and specifically the bailiffs Jack and Ricky, who have really helped me out with keeping an eye on the fish whilst I've been here. It's been a great session. It's been great to be down at Westbrook Mere for the last few days. Thoroughly enjoyed my time, and I think that was a real special ending to have that big common. So we're going to whip the rods in now, get ourselves home. So if you want to stay in touch with my angling journey, please check out my blog, www.jackplayerangling.co.uk. I have monthly blogs going up and some great content coming over the next couple of weeks. And make sure you subscribe to the ClubCarp YouTube channel. There's some fantastic videos coming up, and I really think they're going to whet your appetite and get you out on the bank soon. So it's over and out from me, and hopefully I'll see you on the camera soon.